Hi friends, I'm Miss Pam, and that means that today is, that's right, Word Wednesday, and I'm so glad to be able to come into your homes. Every week I tell you, as much as I enjoy coming into your homes via video, I can't wait till we can meet one-on-one. I don't know about you, but I'm really beginning to miss people that are very important in my life that I'm having to stay away from so that we can make sure that we don't spread anything that we may or may not have at this point. Today we are going to be learning about a man that had leprosy. And very much like the coronavirus, you wanted to stay away from those that had leprosy. It was highly contagious, and back in that day they were thought of as being unclean. So we're going to learn a little bit about that and how Jesus responded to that man. Before we get started, let's go ahead and get all of the supplies that we will need for today's lesson. If you're doing a journal, have markers, pencil, pen, and your journal. If you're doing thank you little notes on scraps of paper to put in your blessing jar, or we're calling them God sightings, that go ahead and grab that. You will also need a ruler or a tape measure. We want to measure what 6 feet is. And I don't have a yardstick. So what I took was, let me see, it's over in the corner here. I took one of these cleaning supplies that I have, and it's about, I'm 5'4", so it's about 6 feet, a little bit taller than 6 feet. But that gives you the idea if you can use something like that. We're just trying to show what the distance is as regarding that. So you can use anything and you can estimate about 6 feet. Let's see, what we will also need: a clear container about 1/3 full of water. It can be any kind of clear container. I just happen to have this that goes with my juice maker, so I thought it was clear, it would be easy to see, so that, and you want to be able to put a top on it so that you can secure it. So whatever container you use, about 1/3 full of water, and then you need any kind of oil. If you want to use, this is canola oil. I mean, we also have grapeseed oil, vegetable oil, any kind of oil. You really won't need to measure really specifically about this, but I'll give you an idea about how much when we start doing that. So I will wait while you pause the video to go gather your supplies, and then we will come back and talk about God sightings. Pause. Okay, well, I'll go ahead and tell you some more about my bird family. I haven't had any suggestions for a name for them, so unfortunately I'm just calling them the wren family. They are home wrens. They were given that name because a lot of times they build their nests, just like what they did on my screened-in porch. They build their nests close to people's homes. I guess they feel that they're sheltered somewhere, some way that way. So they're continuing to grow. I'm going to try to get little pieces of video, but I'm trying to be respectful of the mom and dad as they're feeding their little babies. But I'd really like to show you how they've grown. They went from being little naked babies to now they have down and feathers. I will try after I finish here to get you some video that we can put into this lesson. The other God sightings that I have seen have continued to be nurses and doctors, those that are on the front lines that are helping people that are sick with coronavirus. I've also noticed so many people coming forward with making masks. It's just incredible. I've actually signed up as on a Facebook group that's called Masks for Tallahassee. So if you would like to contribute making masks, that's a great place that they place needs. And they just continue to share. They have done so many for so many different people. So that's been the God sightings for me. Also, God sightings have been, I've actually had a couple of friends over. We sat in the driveway and visited at least 6 feet apart, but we got to visit face to face, and I had one friend that brought me a gift, which was so sweet. She really is a sweetheart of a friend. So I see that very fortunate that I'm able to visit with my friends. So now what I'd like you to do is put me on pause and talk with your family about what God sightings you've seen this week. Pause. So even with all the wonderful God sightings that we see around us, that dealing with this, what is a horrible virus, this coronavirus, we still have been able to see God use people and things and events and for His glory, for us to be able to spend more time reading the Bible and learning more about Him. That sometimes we, as we've talked about before, we get so busy we really don't have the time to do all of that. Now we have a chance to sit back, settle down, and learn more about Him. And I talk to Him throughout the day. Prayer does not have to be a lot of what you might have heard in the past, these, thous, thants, shants. All prayer is a conversation from you to God about your feelings. And when we listen, like we learned last week, when we listen, it's God's way of speaking to us. So I've always heard we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. So we need to listen twice as much as we talk. Sometimes I may not do that, but so, and even with all of these things, you know, I have still dealt with feeling a little bit lonely. And I'm fortunate because I'm not here by myself. I have my husband Mark with me. Both of our girls are grown and they are out of the house. One is in Clearwater, so she's ways away, and I miss her terribly. And our other daughter is in Tallahassee, but we're still practicing the social distancing so that we don't potentially share something with them. So I've really missed, and my mom, you know, my mom is somewhat older, and so I don't want to unknowingly pass anything on to her. So, and she's by herself. So I know that she is going through feeling lonely at this time. It's nice for a little while, but we were created to communicate and share life with others. And so it's only natural that we feel a bit lonely. So what is the hardest thing? I've just shared mine as what is the hardest thing that you've been going through since we have been social distancing, we've been staying at home. Maybe it's been schoolwork, the different ways that we're having to do our schoolwork now. Maybe you are around your siblings a little more than you would like. We don't always get along with those we live with. We have to learn how to peacefully communicate and work those times out. But pause for a moment and talk to your family about what has been the hardest thing for you regarding this whole quarantine coronavirus event. Pause. There may be one person in particular. I've named several that I am missing right now, think of that individual and we will add them to our prayer at the end of this video. It's being separated from people, like I just said, is not a natural way for us to do life. And so it's really makes things different and lonely sometimes. But what we are going to learn about today is that Jesus's power helps us when we are lonely. We're going to learn about Jesus's power and how he helped a man in the Bible who I'm sure was extremely lonely. And not only was he lonely, he was sick. So he was mentally tired and lonely, and he was physically not feeling well. So this is if you would like to follow along, we are taking this from Matthew. That's the first book in the New Testament. Matthew 8, that's chapter 8, the large number, and verses 1 through 3. Feel free to read that with your family later. I am going to just tell the story. So back in Bible times, there was a disease called leprosy. If you got it, you would get painful sores all over your body, and there was no cure. A lot like the coronavirus right now, they're in the process of trying to find an immunization against this virus and to treat those once they get this virus. It's so new. So there was no cure for leprosy. The people who got it would die or lose fingers and toes. That's pretty scary. That makes it you can't walk without your toes. Your toes help you balance. We learned about that last week. And so that's why people are afraid of now. They're afraid of catching the coronavirus, just like they were back in Bible times about catching leprosy. So what are some of the things that we are supposed to do right now to help avoid catching the coronavirus? It's time for that pause again and try to write down with your paper that you got ahead of time and your pencil, pen, crayon. Write down all the things that you can think of that we are not supposed to do right now. One thing that we are supposed to do is we are supposed to be very careful about washing our hands frequently. So we're going to pretend to wash our hands right now while we sing the ABC song. So are you ready? Okay, we've got to wash them real well. Okay, here we go. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. Now I've said my ABCs. Won't you sing along with me? Do they feel clean? We are also supposed to be practicing social distancing right now. We're supposed to stay away from other people. We're being told that to stay safe from catching the coronavirus, that we're supposed to stay 6 feet away from anyone else. So let's try that. I told you earlier that we would need to use a ruler or like I have my little fan cleaner that I've got measured that's about 6 feet. If you have someone in your family that's 6 feet tall, that gives you an idea about how far 6 feet is. So make sure that you measure this out and that everybody in the room is sitting 6 feet apart. And like I said, you know, if you don't have a way to measure that out, just guess to give you an idea. Let me pause again while you do this. Pause. Well, people in Bible times knew about social distancing. We did not discover that. In fact, they were afraid of catching leprosy. It was against the law for someone with leprosy to even come into the city. And if someone with leprosy was around other people, they would have to call out, "Unclean, unclean," so that everyone around them knew to stay away from them. No one wanted to accidentally touch someone with leprosy. So all those rules must have made people that have leprosy lonely. Very much like us having to practice social distancing now if there's no family members that they can share with. So let's try something. Without losing your 6 feet of separation, reach out and try to hug the other people in your family. Remember, don't lean in, just stay right where you are and just get no closer than 6 feet. I'll reach out and I'll try to hug you. And let's pause and try to do this with our family. Pause. Unless you have really long arms, you aren't even able to touch anyone. No hugs, no pats on the back, just you in your own little bubble. Here's a question to talk about. How do you think it would feel to have been this far apart from everyone for years? Pause me while you talk about that, and I'll just be standing here hugging you. It can be pretty lonely not to be able to be close enough to hug anyone for a very, very long time. But let's see what Jesus did when he met someone who had leprosy. As I said, if you want to follow along in your Bible, look up Matthew chapter 8, verses 1 through 3. And while Jesus walked along, a man with leprosy came up to him out of the crowd. The man knew Jesus had the power to save his leprosy. And he said to Jesus, "Lord, if you are willing, you can heal me and make me clean." Jesus reached out his hand and he touched the man and he answered, "I am willing, be healed." And the man was healed instantly. Now, wait, did you just hear what Jesus did? Let me say it again. He touched the man. This man probably has not had a hug or a pat on the back or anyone touch him for a very, very long time. Then Jesus touched him. Jesus wasn't afraid of getting leprosy. Jesus knew that his power was greater than any disease, leprosy or coronavirus. Jesus knew that not only did this man's body need healing, his heart needed healing too. This man needed to feel Jesus' love right there on his arm or his shoulder or his head. He needed a loving touch to heal his loneliness. Now, we need to be wise and protect ourselves. We know that we do not have the power that Jesus has. So we don't need to purposely walk up to someone that we know that has the virus and touch them. Only Jesus in his power can get away with that. But being separated from people, you can think about those that you know that might be feeling lonely, and you can pray for them and let Jesus touch them. Now pause and talk about these questions. Who do you know that might be feeling lonely right now? And 2, how could you reach out to them? Talk about that with your family. Pause. Well, thank you for sharing. We can reach out to help others when they're lonely. But even when no one else is around, Jesus' power helps us when we are lonely. He is always right there with us to comfort us and to heal our hearts. Now, one way that Jesus' power helps us when we're lonely is to remind us that Jesus is our friend. No matter what we are going through, you will always have a friend who is right there next to you, not 6 feet away, but right side by side. Now, the people in Jesus' time didn't want people with leprosy mixing with anyone else. I have a fun mix-it-up science experiment that we can try that can help us think more about that. So it's time to use your oil and your clear container of water. Now let's have some fun. So what you want to do is pour some oil into the water container. Okay, now let's see. So there's about the same amount of water that you have in this. Can you see? Okay, I'm taking, so that was about 1/3 of the container, so I'll fill up the same amount with oil. Little bit more. It doesn't have to be exact. And then I want you to take and put the top on the container very tight. Well, okay. So it's very tight. Now take a look at the mixture. Let's see. See how it's separated right now? What we want to do is once our top is on tight, we want to shake this. We want to shake it, so we just want to keep shaking, keep shaking. And we've mixed it up really, really well. See what it looks like? It's all mixed together pretty well. What we're going to do is we're going to see what happens when it settles back down. So while we're waiting to see what happens, pause the video and talk about this with your family. Now, if everybody wants an opportunity to shake this, you just pass it around the room and let them shake it. And then we are going to talk about a couple of things. We're going to let the mixture settle down. And we're going to see what happens. So what you want to talk about is, what do you miss most because you've been separated from others? As I said, I miss seeing you face to face. I miss being in church, being able to sing in the choir. There's quite a few things that I miss right now. Let's pause and let you and your family talk about that while our mixture settles down a bit. Pause. So oil and water naturally wants to stay separated. The mixture, as the mixture settles down, it doesn't look like the oil and water are really mixed. It seems like the oil and the water, they're still separated. I think they're practicing social distancing. What do you think? So it's not natural for us to separate like this oil and water. We were made to socialize with one another. We were made to communicate with our friends and family and co-workers if you work. And the reason that it doesn't feel right is because that's not what we were made for. I said we were made so that we could communicate with God and God could communicate with us. So during this time, we can turn to Jesus for help because Jesus' power helps us when we are lonely. Thank you for bringing me into your home, and until I can see you face to face and give you those hugs in person, I'll keep talking to you over the video. I love you, and I will see you soon. Bye.